Hello, I'm your host, Brian Callanan. The City of Seattle's new contract with its largest police union paves the way for more 911 alternative responses. But critics say it comes up short on stronger accountability measures. And a new economic forecast has provided signs of optimism for the city budget, but threats of federal cutbacks are still looming large. I'm talking with City Council members Joy Hollingsworth and Bob Kettle about these issues, and the questions viewers like you are sending in too. It's all next on City Inside Out, Council Edition.
We have enough revenue to do what we need to do. That's just the reality. And we're going to have to really do some deep dive in understanding what our spending is.
Our military is for our nation. It's not here for political, performative, partisan means. It's not here for a red state, red county America. As I tell people, it's here for red, white, and blue America.
All that and more coming up next on City Inside Out, Council Edition. And here they are from City Council District 3, from the Central District out to Lake Washington. It's Councilmember Joy Hollingsworth. Good to see you.
Likewise, thank you.
We also have with us from District 7, in the brown trunks in the corner there, from downtown out to Southeast Magnolia, Councilmember Bob Kettle. Thank you for being here, too.
Thank you. Great to be again.
All right. Councilmember Kettle, let me start with you. You're the Public Safety Committee Chair on the Council, and I want to start with a public safety question. So the city just signed a new contract with the Seattle Police Officers Guild. This is the union that makes up most of the rank and file for the SPD. The new contract will allow CARE, the Community Assisted Response and Engagement Teams, Seattle's 911 alternative, to go up by themselves. In some cases, not a dual dispatch with police. The city wanted to achieve that. But I've also seen a few reports showing the contract did not get all the police accountability measures the city was hoping for. What are your big takeaways from this new contract with the police officers union?
Three takeaways. One is SPD staffing. I come back to our strategic framework plan. We have to build up our police force, and this is going to be great. It's going to be bringing on the next generation of sworn officers. Two is the alternative response point, care department, really unleashing that and really building that forward, and that's really important because we have to have that situation where it's police criminalization, but to deal with people where they are.
Yeah, people down in a doorway or something like that.
All those pieces in between, so then we don't have those instances. And then the third piece is the accountability point that you talked about, and that's really big. There's more than you think.
Okay.
And one of the big ones is frontline investigations for me, because that will allow our junior, like the sergeants, to learn how to be leaders, and that's going to make for better lieutenants, captains, assistant chiefs, deputy chiefs, and maybe even a chief in the future.
Okay.
And tied to that is OPA, the Office of Police Accountability. There's three pieces that go to OPA that are to the benefit of accountability.
But maybe some of the disciplinary actions, I think there might have been some.
Well, the one thing that subpoenas was not included in it.
Right.
That's a big one, but it's not included. And there's others that are going to go to what we call interest arb in arbitration.
Yes.
And but as Chief of Staff Meyerberg said yesterday, we stuck to our guns.
Okay.
We didn't fold, but we said, okay, go to arbitration, because we're in an impasse. One of the things you have to understand, labor relations rules are labor relations rules. And we can't just override
go around them. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much for that. Councilmember Hollingsworth, I wanted to make sure I pointed this out. This new contract includes a big raise for Seattle Police, about a 13% jump from last year. They're already the highest paid officers in the state. The added dollars have been helping bring in some new recruits to fill up staffing shortages in the SPD, as you've talked about. But I thought you made an interesting point a few weeks ago at a meeting talking with Chief Sean Barnes about this. To paraphrase, you were asking the chief how increased staffing will lead to better response times, greater visibility of officers there. Can you help me connect the dots? Are you confident this new contract will help deliver on some of these issues that you're raising about the SPD?
I am, and that's the goal. We know that when we have more officers that can respond to certain things, we can have lower response times. We can also have better customer service, to be able to respond to things. And so that's really the goal. But I also really want to focus on the outcomes. And so, during this process, understanding like, hey, if we are providing these pieces in a contract, what are going to be the outcomes? What are the commitments from our Seattle Police Department to the community that's going to make sure people are feeling the impacts of public safety investments.
You're asking for more transparency from SPD? Is that the way?
Yeah, just accountability.
Yeah.
We ask for accountability for nonprofits. You ask accountability from city departments and from SPD as well. And that's not that you don't support them. You just want to make sure that we are having the right outcomes for our investments.
All right. Thank you very much for that. I did want to make sure that I pointed out over the last couple of weeks, the council has been learning a lot more about what the city is paying for police officers, for parks, for transportation improvements, and so much more. You're in the middle of the budget process here. Councilmember Hollingsworth, the council recently reviewed a new economic forecast that showed revenue coming into the city may be about $12 to $14 million more than what was expected. I have a quick soundbite here from how Councilmember Strauss reacted to this, the budget chair. Here's how he described the situation.
This year has been full of twists and turns, and while today's news is positive, I share caution because we don't know what we will need to attend to in the next 6 months, in the next 12 months.
Councilmember Strauss was talking about a muted positive approach here, and I believe he's talking about the possibility in the future of maybe some federal funding cuts coming down the line. What is your interpretation of what's going on? What's your approach to the budget this year?
Yeah, you're always cautiously optimistic, and just because you have it doesn't mean you should spend it. And, understanding what's happening at the federal level, are we going to have to make investments from those cuts, do some backfills? We have priorities on a lot of infrastructure in our district from different parks, different community organizations. We also have wanted to see some investments on Capitol Hill and the Central District and East Lake, all these different approaches. And so we took what we heard from all neighborhoods in our district to figure out, hey, what are some of the priorities that you had, and making sure that we were aligned with understanding, like, hey, we want to make sure that these investments are infrastructure based for all the community to have access to them.
Got it. Are you concerned about those numbers or the possibility of big federal funding cuts? I just want to get real about that.
Yeah, you're always concerned about money and revenue and what that looks like, and making sure that we're not, pulling the lever on too many taxes and we are spending people's money well. The one thing that I will always make sure that we are doing is getting the outcomes and the measurable impact, so people feel like, hey, we're spending this money on certain things. Do I see that every day? Do I see our parks clean? Do I see those roads and the potholes fill? Is a city department responding to me? Like a world-class city, we should have world-class responses.
Got it. Councilmember Kettle, give us the big picture look. How would you describe the budget situation the city's in right now?
It's difficult, and I was listening to that answer, I was thinking about expectation management. And I was kind of first thinking about with the contract, like, hey, we're doing these things, but doesn't mean we're going to have instantaneous, changes. It takes like a year plus for that to go into effect. And it's expectation management with the budget. We have to be on guard related to the federal government. Like, I have an amendment to give the ability to flex from going into the future, but to give backfill if something happens with the federal government on the human services side. And we have to build these things in. And it's a difficult fiscal environment too, and 2027 is going to be around the corner as well. So we have to be saying, hey, expectation management. This is not a growth period. We're holding steady, and we're trying to give that flexibility that's needed given the uncertain federal environment.
Thank you very much for that. Let's go a little bit further into the budget. And Councilmember Kettle, I'll stick with you. As you know, the council recently approved a measure that would allow the city to collect an additional 0.1% sales tax to be used for public safety purposes. The state legislature authorized cities and counties to do this earlier on this year. That's going to bump up Seattle's sales tax to one of the highest, if not the highest in the country. One online commenter had this to say about it. Economy doing well, time for a tax increase. Economy doing poorly, time for a tax increase. Economy about the same, time for a tax increase. I wanted to make sure we talked about this. Tell us about this sales tax bump, why you think Seattle needs it, and where you think the revenue from it should go.
I'm glad I gave my answer before that question, in terms of expectation management, because it's about being real and being upfront. And as relates to this 0.1% public safety sales tax, for me, it's about alternative response. It's the care pieces.
Okay.
But it's also about addressing the seams. A big piece that I've been pushing for like the last half year is the seam between public safety and public health and public safety and human services. That's why we have LEAD as part of this public safety sales tax piece. That link, that law enforcement assisted diversion.
Yep.
We have to ensure that that is working. We have to have a functional criminal justice system. We have to have a functional public safety system. If these little pieces aren't working, then messes everything up, and we need to be addressing those kinds of points. And that's what this tax allows us to do.
Thank you. So you think most of the dollars should be going into CARE, that alternative response there then?
Well, there's a mix. I say alternative response, by the way, because you heard in the report, there's the fire piece.
That's right. That's right.
And, you know, by the way, we have mental health professionals and police, CSOs. So I think it's important to talk about alternative response, and CARE is central to that. But we have to be mindful of these other parts. And I think we're going to be in good position for that, in addition to help address the seam between public safety and these other areas.
Got it. Thanks a lot for that. Councilmember Hollingsworth, back to you. So in between the sales tax hike and an expectation that voters will approve a change to the business and occupation tax structure to bring in more money, it looks like there's enough revenue to stabilize the budget this year. But the budget office is already saying you're going to have a $140 million shortfall in 2027. Another online commenter put it this way: every budget cycle becomes a tug-of-war between progressive spending demands and taxpayer fatigue. Leaders talk about investments, but rarely about trade-offs. The result, patchwork fixes, not structural reform. I just wanted to look at the years ahead because it seems like there is a structural budget problem when it comes to city spending that your process this year is not going to solve. How do you look at that?
Yeah, so a couple things. We have enough revenue to do what we need to do. That's just the reality. And we're going to have to really do some deep dive in understanding what our spending is. We're constantly doing that now. But I know people are getting very fatigued on, hey, is there going to be another downfall? Are there going to be more taxes? Is there, you know, I always say progressive revenue should equate to progressive outcomes. And so that's, you know, we're going to have to, again, really get real and serious about, hey, what are we spending on, and making sure that, again, those have the impact. But I do want to say this about the sales, the public safety tax. The one thing I really do like about this is that we have not addressed the public health that is on our streets. And with this tax, that does that to be able, you have lead, you have diversion, you have treatment. A lot of the activity on our streets, the fentanyl, the drug crisis, the people that are having complete breakdowns right in front of us, this tax is gonna help with that. So it's not just, oh, you know, we have this contract coming from our police officers and we're paying more folks. We have another multi-pronged approach. And that's why I like Councilmember Kettle when he's always talking about public safety and public health, how they're intertwined, because we have seen that everywhere in our city.
Yeah, you can't separate the two, I think, in a lot of ways.
You cannot.
Councilmember Kettle, can you talk about this structural budget issue? You touched on it a second ago. It looks like it could be a similar issue for the council coming down the line here. And those difficult decisions about the cuts, are they not being made, or how would you describe what's going on?
Yes, we do need the structural reform, and part of this is looking at the revenue pieces. Like, we've made changes to the PET, the payroll expense tax, to give that flexibility. That kind of goes to what we're talking about.
Okay.
And on the other hand, I asked last year with Councilmember Moore about having a Seattle housing investment plan. And OH, Office of Housing, gave us a great plan. And they showed, like, strategy in terms of how they're spending money, which includes MHA, mandatory housing affordability, MFTE, multifamily tax exemption, the housing levy, like how they're using it for different things. And I'm asking for this year, by the way, for them to include the money that we put in with the King County Regional Homeless Authority, KCRHA, and then have an understanding of what's happening on social housing, because we have to have that big picture and understand, and to Councilmember Hollingsworth's point, and then make those trade-offs, make those smart decisions, and have a strategy to do it. So if we do these pieces, I think we can be in the place to be smart on revenue, but also be smart on our spending.
Okay, that's going to be an interesting discussion down the line. I know that. And I would also say there's not a ton of room in this budget to call for anything extra, but I also know council members are always working on amendments to add programs to their districts, or possibly things they're working on in committee. Councilmember Kettle, could you talk about maybe 2 or 3 things that you're pushing for in this budget that might not make the big headlines?
You know, to your point, they're all much smaller dollar amounts, primarily.
But there are no small programs, I know that.
But we have to look out and ensure that programs are moving along and don't get stalled. So I've been working with Councilmember Hollingsworth on getting Belltown a park, Portal Park, where the old viaduct came in.
Yeah, right.
And so we're talking like less than $500,000, 100 to 350K for, you know, it depends on how it comes about.
You'll get out there with a shovel yourself.
I'll get out there with a shovel, but we need the survey work, the study work to be done, to be smart in terms of how we design, the design work, but we need to keep these things going. So there's a small ad. That kind of goes to the scale. And then the other thing, too, is and kind of going to Councilmember Hollingsworth's point about, the accountability, is that there's going to be some provisos in there on the public safety side that I put in. And this goes to, I've done it before on salary savings, salary pieces, but there's overtime and there's these other pieces as well that we have to be looking at and ensuring that we are spending the money right and we're getting the outcomes that we're looking for.
Okay, looking forward to seeing those too. Councilmember Hollingsworth, maybe some projects you're working on to fit into this year's budget. What do you got?
Yeah, you always have pie in the sky stuff, but some of the priorities we have are, some field opportunities for upgrades and improvements for our little leagues. To a lot of my goals, our North Star this year is for our kids. Obviously, we have the family educations levy, but alongside with like recreation and sports, understanding that is a huge deal for kids to be able to have access to. So we have that. We also have some studies that we want to do to find out, like, hey, how can we bring public and private partnership into potentially some of these investments? We have some safety things that we want to do in terms of transportation as well around schools and safe routes to school and crosswalks. So there's a little mix. I always call it a gumbo. We have a gumbo of a little bit of everything from our district.
Okay, I'm looking forward to seeing those amendments too. Thank you very much for that. I want to stick with you, Councilmember Hollingsworth, to talk about the comprehensive plan. Take a deep breath.
Yeah.
You've been working a lot on this. This is the roadmap, of course, for urban growth in the city. You chaired the committee that worked on this very long and challenging process. I know it's not over yet. There's still some work to do here, but I want your big picture takeaways from this. What did you accomplish? What are the biggest changes you think we're going to see in terms of traditional single-family neighborhoods, now known as neighborhood residential areas? What's going to be different?
Yeah, I was really excited because, one, we all could work well as a council, and we all had a lot of the same priorities in terms of housing and growth, understanding that every neighborhood had to be unlocked. You had House Bill 1110, which unlocked every lot in the city to be able to have 4 to 6 units. Our comprehensive plan, that's more that 30,000-foot overview of the growth and what that looked like. And so some of the things that we're happy that passed, we had some stuff regarding social housing provider that Councilmember Kettle sponsored. We had some bonuses around schools to try to make sure that we're having family housing. We had some ADA requirements go in there. We had tree protections.
Yeah.
There was a little bit of everything, and I thought it was very thoughtful the way people presented their amendments. But this is only phase 1, Brian. So, and that will come to the end of council in December, and then phase 2, which is the zoning height and the FARs and how tall things are going to go. That will come next year, and it's a working document. Some people are always saying, like, hey, is this the final? Do you all just lock it in a key and throw it away?
Yeah.
No, we still have more work to do, and I'm excited about that.
Yeah, what do you see? I mean, what comes out of a process like that? You mentioned maybe 4 to 6 units because of House Bill 1110. Is there anything else beyond that? Yeah,
so also, too, at the council, we made it easier for people to incentivize them to have different types of housing. When you talk to people around the city, they're like, hey, we have a lot of these townhouses. Can we have stacked flats? Can we have cottages? People we heard want to live, be able to age in place. Can I put an ADU in my backyard? Can it be easier to do that, right? Those things I think were really, really specific. Growth around transit corridors. Those things that, you ask, like, hey, how fast are we going to see those? As fast as we can with the economy, with the building, with the taxes. There are so many different pieces that come in that permitting process. Mayor passed down some legislation to kind of streamline that and get that better. So we look to be hopefully building housing really soon here. Okay, thank you for that. Councilmember Kettle, I just wanted to talk about the plan here and how it's working into the housing production targets that have been set up by King County. I'm looking at some of the numbers their experts are talking about. We need about 112,000 new housing units in the next 25 years in Seattle. The majority of it needs to be affordable, somewhere in this 70% to 80% range of area median income. Do you feel like this comp plan is going to get us there?
I think so, and partly it's the math, because we designed for a higher number with the expectation that the utilization rate of this is usually 40-something%. So we kind of designed to the higher amount, and that allows for that number to be achieved. And I think a really important point is creating that variety of housing, to really build a better housing market, to allow people to move up as a young person, maybe with a condo and one of those skinny townhomes maybe, to then more bedroom home, but then as you get older to downsize, we need to have that mix to allow for that flexibility in the housing market. And I think we did a good job with Chair Hollingsworth regarding that committee. She did a great job of herding all the cats.
Yeah.
It's not an easy process, by the way. It's not
There's
an
still
easy
some herding
process
to do, too.
Yes.
Yeah,
by the way,
right.
yes, we haven't taken the fun. A lot of people think that it's done because it's like committee voted and we're all of us, but we actually have to do it as a council.
Yeah.
So we got one more to do.
Okay. I guess I wanted to touch on that point, though, this whole idea that you got to get developers on board. It's got to pencil out for them. Do you think this plan is able to achieve that? Because if you don't have those folks on board, that's a real challenge. You're not getting that housing built that you need to.
Yes, you have to take into account, we can't bury our head in the sand. I talk to developers all the time. I talk across their whole range.
Sure.
And it's interesting when little pieces come up, like, oh, this impacts that. And we just did the MFTE.
Right, I was going to mention that, yeah.
And I talked to a developer who's not in that world. He's in a different area of development. And I said to him, because I'm always asking questions, so what do you think about MFTE?
This is a multifamily tax exemption. Keep going.
Yes, why? Well, all my friends in there are really complaining about it, but they're doing it.
Okay.
So it sounds good that we're in a good place.
Okay.
And so, but we had to adjust it for the future too. And I think we have to make these choices to ensure that we're in the right place.
Yeah. Can you touch on this MFTE issue? Because again, we're talking about, there's a lot of units around Seattle, as I understand it, that are these one-bedroom studios, but for the multifamily, the larger units, it doesn't sound like there are as many of them out there as there need to be.
Yeah.
But then developers, it's a little tougher for them to build that rather than those studios. So help me with that balance and what this council did about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And just real quick, I wanted to touch on, it's not only about developers, and Councilmember Kettle is right. We also unlocked just an everyday person who wants to age in place to be able to convert their house duplex, triplex. We had amendments for people to put ADUs in their backyard, things that are going to make it easier for folks, which I think is going to help to the housing market.
Okay.
Just the diversity of it. The MFTE program, we voted on a slight variation of it to get more developers to participate in that. As it stood, how it was implemented years ago is that was implemented for the market when it came on. And so you have to adjust for that, right? People want to see more 2 and 3 bedrooms. People want, to be able, a little flexibility on the rent piece and what that looks like. You've heard a lot of folks also talk about how the program, it's really hard to get involved in, and you have to fill out a lot of paperwork. So, we think we found, it was hard, but we think we found a good approach to kind of just say, hey, can we get more developers involved? It's some of the things that they ask for, but make sure that we're not jeopardizing on our values for that program.
Got it. Councilmember Hollingsworth, I want to stick with you because there's kind of a complex planning issue about grocery stores that you've raised concerns about. 2 major grocery stores have moved out of your district during your time in office, and Seattle just saw another store move out of District 5 in North Seattle in the last couple weeks here. The mayor has put out an executive order calling for multiple city agencies to identify areas that might be at risk of becoming food deserts, as they're called. They don't have a grocery store. What's this order from the mayor going to do? What can the city really do about this in terms of what's next with grocery closures? This is a big deal.
Yeah, so let me set the table, no pun intended, really quick. So before pandemic, groceries average pound was around $2.35. Now we're looking over $3.10, $3.20 for a pound of groceries.
I see, okay.
And that's how you're able to see hey, how is the grocery fluctuating? It's gone up 10, 20, 30%. Every single year, groceries have gone up. We all feel it at the grocery stores. Grocery stores have a 2% margin for them operating. That's at a big scale grocery. If you're a smaller grocery, you cannot take these losses like that. So when we see closures from big organizations, big companies, that's an issue, right? That is, and a lot of their costs that are going to, it could be security, it could be, just permitting as well, or taxes. It costs a lot to do business in Seattle. Yeah. And so what this is going to do is identify Fred Meyer to figure out a new new company to go in there. Also, we have some stuff with a comprehensive plan that, identifies corner stores as well. There's different grocery models that we want want to do. Not every neighborhood needs a full-scale grocery store.
Yeah.
Maybe it's in that 5,000 square foot range, just the basics, milk, bread, eggs, meat. So I really support this executive order.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what happens with that one, too. Councilmember Kettle, another letter from the mailbag here regarding urban growth. Eric wanted to ask this. We have 4 underutilized ports for shipping container traffic. Terminal 46 is in a beautiful location next to Soto that could support 7,000 new housing units, along with shops, cafes, and parks. Why not explore revitalizing downtown by redeveloping Terminal 46? Eric, thank you for the question. There was an article recently about this in Post Alley. Some thoughts about redeveloping Terminal 46? I know downtown revitalization is very important to you.
It is, but you also know my view on Stadium Makers Bill, and so he can go back to the Seattle channel and look up all those, because I was very strong on that. Because we have to ensure
that's Portland we're talking about.
Yes, and it's the industrial. I'm on the Puget Sound Regional Council. We're talking about these things, and it's really important for our future. We have to ensure that we have a viable port 100 years from now. You don't recreate deep water ports like we have. We have to protect this. You know, guys going to Alaska, comes and goes. Timber comes and goes. Airplanes, now it's tech. But we have to ensure that we are flexible and ensure that the industrial areas of Soto, but also the Benmick, the Ballard and Inner Bay area is also taken care of. So I'll push back on that. So I appreciate the comment, because there's other areas, and this comp plan is really addressing his question in that respect. Now, to get into the details with Pier 30, Pier 46, one of the things that needs to be unlocked is understanding what the Coast Guard's doing.
Okay.
That is key, and because they're the 800-pound gorilla here, and they have not come out with their decision, and that's going to have an impact with the Coast Guard base, 46 involved. And so what people are seeing is that the process is kind of stalled because the Coast Guard, the federal government, has not made a decision.
Speaking of federal government, I want to wrap up with this topic if I could. I wanted to talk about the possibility of National Guard troops being deployed in Seattle. So many headlines about this. There was a panel of judges recently from the 9th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals that made a ruling saying President Trump can send troops into Portland, Oregon to achieve Trump's goals of suppressing protests and helping with domestic immigration enforcement. I know you've spoken out about this. The mayor signed an executive order about this. What are your concerns right now? What can Seattle do about this?
Do what we're doing. Running the city well, taking care of our public safety challenges. I reject that we should go en banc in the 9th Circuit, and then they can look at it, because we're being gaslit by the president. We're being gaslit by the president. And we're taking care of business, and it's wrong. And we see it in other areas too, but it's wrong. And here's the thing too, Brian, that nobody's really talking about, and I'm pretty animated about this as a veteran. Our military is for our nation. It's not here for political, performative, partisan means. It's not here for a red state, red county America. As I tell people, it's here for red, white, and blue America. And we cannot have our National Guard go. I am being taken back to Baghdad when I was in Iraq, when I see a Black Hawk having people rappelled down in Chicago, when I see uniformed soldiers on the ground here in D.C. and these other areas. It is wrong. It is wrong in all these cases, and it's pejorative. He's basically looking to set up a situation where he can get his agenda passed. This has nothing to do with what's on the ground here. We talk about FIFA World Cup, whatever. We just had the American League Championship Series here.
Right.
No problems.
Yeah.
We have NFL games here, and we just had Club World Cup.
Yeah.
We're being gaslit, Brian.
Okay.
We're being gaslit, and on National Guard, again, the military is for our nation. Yeah. It's not for these political, partisan, and performative reasons.
Thank you for that. Councilmember Hollingsworth, I know your district has been in the middle of some really challenging protests this year. I'm thinking about the controversial rally from May Day USA up at Cal Anderson Park a few months ago. What do you think is going to happen to Seattle if the National Guard comes in? I'm not trying to scare people. I'm trying to get real. Yeah,
get real, because we've seen the lawsuit that, for Portland, right, and California. This is why I really double down on what Councilmember Kettle said. We have to control what we can control. Make sure the city is run well, people are getting fed, get to jobs on time, making sure potholes are getting filled, just the basics piece, to not give the incentive for anything for the federal government to come in. There's news coming out of the other Washington, as I call it, all the time, right? It's left, right, up, down, whatever. We have to stay focused. We have a mayor that is a that is a lawyer. We have a great attorney general. We have a governor who's a lawyer. Like, we have a lot of the legal pieces in place right now. The best thing we can do is just make sure that we're prepared with funding a lot of the immigrant right groups, make sure that we have our community as well resources, and they're safe.
All right, thank you very much. That's Councilmember Joy Hollingsworth. That's Councilmember Bob Kettle. Thanks a lot for joining us. We will see you next time on City Inside Out Council Edition.